Welcome back, y'all. And today we're talking about a unique piece of media with a history almost as convoluted as its own story. Turok, Son of Stone. I wanted to get this video out sooner than what it did, but because my PC had other plans, that didn't happen. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Turok, Turok is a comic book character that started out in the mid-1950s, originally created by... okay, give me a second. Oh, okay. Gaylord. Okay, I'm serious. Created by Gaylord Dubois.
What, Gaylord?
Turok, created by Dell Comics, originally intended to be the Young Hawk series, a spin-off of the Lone Rangers. It never came to be and was shelved for several years, but with a few tweaks here and there, it eventually got published as Turok Son of Stone. Following the adventure of Turok and his sidekick Andar as they travel the Lost Lands in New Mexico. Instead of rogue tribes and outlaws, Turok faced off against dinosaurs, cavemen, and headhunters. Because somebody at Dell Comics came to the obvious realization that kids like dinosaurs. It's, common knowledge now, but back then it was groundbreaking. And I don't care what media out there says, kids will always like dinosaurs. I'm looking at you, Jurassic World. Kids be bored of dinos, my ass. Looking through the old comics, it's apparent that Turok took inspiration from a lot of media at the time. Similarities with King Kong and even the premise itself comes right out of the Lost World. Not that one. Not that one either. Yes, the original Lost Land from 1925 that featured an island that dodged the mass extinction millions of years ago, allowing wildlife to remain untouched until explorers come across the island and capture one of the dinos and take it back home. A comically bad idea and one of the most used tropes I can think of in movie history. Now, the Lost Land in Turok, for the most part, operates the same way, but instead of explorers raiding the Lost Kingdom, Turok and Andar are just trying to survive. A task made more difficult by Andar, always getting into trouble and just being a general nuisance. I get the point. Andar was the plucky young sidekick for younger readers to latch onto, like Robin was to Batman, but in this case, I just wanted to see him get eaten or just be wrote out of the series. After reading several of these old comics, in my opinion, it really needed some action. The OG series was a little dry and bare in places. You will occasionally get a stint where Turok has to kill a dinosaur to make shoes so they can cross a lava field, but most of the time it's just Turok saving Andar from natural selection. Repeating tropes and story beats is common in comics, even to this day that happens, but Son of Stone did this to an annoying degree. Even the writers back in the day were aware of how annoying Andar was. To counter this, they wrote an issue where Turok just turns on him and tries to beat his ass. It was written off as Turok just being under the control of an influence, but in my headcanon, Turok just had enough, snapped, and tried to open up a can of whoop ass on this boy. I am going to admit, I do love the artwork of the dinosaurs. It's wildly inaccurate considering what we know now. This reflected what the scientific community thought at the time, and the artwork kind of preserves a sort of time capsule of paleontology at the time. The series ran up to 1983, ending on issue 130. 130 issues in 28 years. Kind of sparse considering other titles put out double this in that same amount of time. But the running theory is many assets from Turok, like writers and stuff, were allocated elsewhere while Turok was reeling on the back end. And it really didn't help that it was hurting for ideas at the time. So they eventually just shelved it. 9 years later, Turok is rebooted by Valiant Comics and becomes Turok, Dinosaur Hunter. Now, this is the Turok that we're all familiar with. It introduces new ideas and concepts involving science fiction, Lovecraftian horror, and expanding on the mythology across the landscape. And this is what the series is primarily known by its fan base today. Changing the Lost Land from an untouched prehistoric wilderness into an interdimensional border world, portals leading to different places all over the Lost Land or different dimensions entirely, it's best to think of this as Zen from Half-Life. And with this brand new premise, Turok was no longer drained by his time and setting. The same series can have a Native American warrior face off against a dinosaur, a cyborg, or a straight up demon, giving writers the means to do practically whatever they wanted. With the only constraint, it must blend in with the tied universe the rest of Valiant Comics had already established. To be completely transparent, I was more partial to this run of Turok. They're mostly because it was the springboard for the games put out by Iguana Entertainment. And over the years, I've been collecting the issues, and here's a few of them. Even a few books based off the Iguana games. Hey, hands off the merchandise. A few years passed and Valiant Comics was purchased by Acclaim, making way for Turok to be made into the games, beloved by so many, myself included. And at this point, Turok's popularity was the highest it's ever been. This would be a good time to make an animated movie, right? Nope. Even though ideas were floating around, nothing really came of it. Which is surprising considering Acclaim had a marketing campaign that some would consider unhinged. These and many, many more stunts performed by Acclaim resulted in Acclaim shutting their doors and comics properties were going back to Valiant, while the Turok media rights fell to DreamWorks Classics. The Turok comics were rebooted again by Dark Horse Comics in partnership with Warner Brothers in 2012. I think it's still owned by Warner Brothers, partially. That licensing issue is a giant web of madness of who owns what. A video best left up to somebody else who can make sense of this lawyer gibberish. Now, during 2008, Classic Media decided to make an animated feature to come out alongside the Turok game being released by Propaganda. Now, instead of getting DreamWorks to do it, they outsource it to that company to make a Turok movie. Ooh. Just going to sidestep that one. Which finally brings us today's focus, and I'm going to need some help with this. Where'd you go? Hey, Nigel. I'm not going to ask who that was. Do you mind giving me a hand? Very funny. You know, if you keep eating like that, you're going to get fat. Or... Oh, shit! Well, that got out of hand. I guess I'm doing this on my own. Oh well. Let's take a bite out of Turok, Son of Stone. The movie starts off with a young Turok and his brother Neshoba competing for the attention of a girl Katori, chasing her hairpin that fell into a creek. And the splash fightiest way possible. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. Commotion gets the attention of a scout party from another tribe who pick up the pin and notice the kids, and Katori most of all. The leader decides to get rid of the boys, but Turok is full of all kinds of surprises.
I'll trade you for this!
Turok goes into this kind of blood rage, wiping out the enemy scouts, but doesn't come to his senses until it's a little too late and goes apeshit on his brother. He doesn't kill Neshoba, but he comes pretty damn close. The chieftain and the villagers are discussing what to do with Turok, whether to exile him or not, and hold the phone.
Enemies or no, their brothers and sons will not forgive.
Graham Greene? You have Graham Greene and you film and you give him one line? The man has been in movies like Dances with Wolves, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and you give him one line? If you have no idea what I'm talking about, here's a piece of his work.
She robbed me anyway. What are you talking about? He's not an ounce of decency. Pull yourself together, man! Everybody's looking.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear Graham Greene, and there's no way this movie could catch me off guard again.
What speaks to this boy is not our peaceful land of sunlight and laughing rivers.
That's Russell Maines. Paladin from Pocahontas and Chingachgook from Last of the Mohicans? Damn. Out of fear of Turok succumbing to his dark nature and endangering the village, he's permanently exiled by the shaman. And the movie flash forwards 16 years with a young boy running through the woods. Meet this movie's interpretation of Andar. Now, here's the good question of where this movie will differ. In the comics, he was a whiny, helpless wimp that couldn't do anything for himself. Let's see if the updated version is any better.
What the hell is that?
The old version would have pissed himself. To be fair, it's kind of hard to make out what that is, and maybe that's his problem. He didn't know whether to be scared or laugh himself silly. Seems young Andar is looking for Turok to help the village with the upcoming battle with the tribe those scouts belong to. Kind of weird they wait 16 years to retaliate. Turok refuses, sending Andar packing, and we see adult Neshoba and Katori, Andar's parent.
He said no, Father.
What did you expect? It's not too late, Neshoba.
Holy crap, Irene Bedard? Pocahontas herself is in this movie. And it's not a cameo either. She's a main character. Okay, cool. I'm liking this movie's voice cast. Neshoba commits to the battle even with Katori's objection, marking Andor and allowing him to join the war party. Katori gives him the hairpin from the beginning as a lucky charm. They say their goodbyes and the war party heads off to battle. Both groups meeting at the creek where Turok went all Jason Voorhees on those assholes. And we get introduced to the villain of the movie, Cheechak, leading the opposition determined to wipe out Neshoba's entire tribe. I wonder why. The fight begins with Neshoba's tribe firing arrows, just coming up short, the only kill being made by Neshoba himself. Cheechak's party does not have that problem.
Father!
I live. But what weapons are these?
Okay, hold up. You guys have steel knives, but don't know what a gun is. The French supplied both, so if you have one, you should know what the other one is. But it's a Turok. It's not like they're going for historical accuracy anyway.
We looked at everything to make sure, more visual than anything. Were the weapons accurate? Would that tribe have used those weapons? And
You failed!
Yeah. The battle goes as expected, with Cheechak coming out as victor, wrapping up the battle, and Andor almost getting a new breathing hole put in his head. But his dad comes in and takes a shot himself. Andor makes a beeline for Turok, but by the time they get back, the battle's already over and the buzzards are already swarming. They did find Neshoba strung up and barely alive, Turok and Neshoba giving their goodbyes, with Neshoba's dying request for Turok to look after his family. Turok getting the hairpin back. And back at the village, Cheechak and his men? Where's the rest of his war party? Did they just go, nah dude, we good, and just go back home? I guess it's easier to animate Turok kicking 3 asses instead of an entire war party. Turok and Andor show up on the scene, Cheechak holding Katori hostage and everybody squaring up. And that's when Cheechak recognizes the tomahawk Turok is carrying.
Where did you get that?
I took it from one of your people, and then I killed him with it.
It was my father's. Today you will die by its edge!
Oh, that's why he's so pissed off. This is that asshole's son. Yeah, okay, makes sense. This time the moccasin's on the other foot though. Turok wastes no time in dealing with these assholes, with Cheechak running for the hills, still hanging on to Katori as a bargaining chip. Cheechak gets cornered in a cavern, and everything looks like it's about to be wrapped up until the residents of the cavern show up. Turok and Andor fight the overgrown chicken while Cheechak drives Katori deeper into the cave. Andor scores a shot hitting the bird in the eye, ending the tussle, letting him continue the pursuit. They exit the cave and find they're not in Kansas anymore.
I don't think those are buffalo. Where are we?
The Lost Land, everybody. The dinosaurs look good, but that background, yikes. They continue tracking the asshack, but find they ain't the only ones doing it. Damn, Cheechak is just an ass, man. Using Katori as bait, he gets away, and the next 10 minutes of the movie is just the group trying to escape this Carnosaur. And I gotta give it to the Carnosaur. She refuses to give up. And I like this bit of animation here where she's trying to decide if she can cross the log or not. It just shows a little bit of character, and you can see those gears turning in her head. It was a bad decision, of course. It breaks under her weight. It doesn't stop her in the slightest. She chases them through the jungle into a tree. And Cheechak, being the asshole he is, takes the opportunity to take pot shots at him. The Carnosaur just has enough and knocks the tree into the river. And even then, she still doesn't give up. Cheechak gives up before she does, but right before they go over the waterfall, the Carnosaur takes one last swipe at Turok before they go over. The group get back on the log and use it to travel down the river, and the river ride gives them a chance to rest and take in the Lost Land in all of its brutal glory. And Turok kind of comments on how the land feels familiar to him, which is kind of odd because he's the first of that line to be there. But he also believes it's the underworld too. Now, I'm kind of thinking that's a nice reference to Jules Verne's story Journey to the Center of the Earth, which also had similar themes. Or at least I would like to think that's what it is. They come to the end of their ride and begin paddling to shore, the splashing catching some unwanted attention. Ouch, this gotta hurt. But the good thing is, Turok can dish it right back. The blood in the water rings a dinner bell for the mosasaur.
always a bigger fish.
Just around the river bend indeed. They narrowly dodge being eaten by the mosasaur before they meet some of the locals. Now this is where the story splits, following Cheechak and Turok separately. Turok's group gets to meet the Cliff People, a lost branch of their own tribe, while Cheechak comes in contact with some cavemen. Turok earns a place for his party by getting dinner for the tribe. They send him up a rock formation to raid the nest at the top, something that pterodons don't take too kindly to. And I have to give credit where credit is due. In most movies they would have the pterodons try to eat people, like Jurassic World again. But here they're just trying to get an invader out of their nest. And don't get me wrong, they're trying to actively kill Turok, but wouldn't you too? In the context of the situation, the pterodons attacking makes sense. Now Turok, instead of taking the long way down, catches Ride, giving a pterodon a break at the end.
Meanwhile, back in the jungle,
Cheechak's having to deal with the cavemen, and he goes the more direct approach by killing the leader of the cavemen and taking over the group. Both groups sit down to eat their bounty, and I'm pretty sure I prefer the eggs over what the cavemen are eating. Cheechak tries to organize the cavemen into a war party to chase down Turok, eventually getting aggravating and shooting one of the cavemen and using his blood to draw the mark of Turok's tribe, something the Cliff People share, so the cavemen pick up on it and begin their march. Turok spends his time healing away from the others, getting visited by a man in a mask, who's just more or less poking at him.
Why are you hiding behind a mask?
I only want to know why you are here alone in the dark.
It is where I belong.
And you say I am hiding.
A few days pass and Andar and Katori get inducted in the tribe. Sapinta, the chieftain, tries to convince Turok to also join the tribe, but gets a resounding no, Turok still being the loner. That's when Cheechak and his cavemen strike, and just like everything else in the Lost Land, they don't go down easy, taking arrows to the chest and just brushing them aside. Only by matching the cavemen's brutality are they able to push them back over the bridge. But due to their sheer numbers, Turok comes to a decision to cut the ropes of the bridge before they get overrun again. Sapinta hesitates because one of her warriors, Koba, is still on the bridge fighting the cavemen back. Turok looks to Koba for confirmation, getting a nod, and then cuts the bridge, ending the siege. After the battle, tempers start to flare, with the tribe contributing all the deaths to Turok, labeling him as a jinx or just outright accusing him of murdering Koba. To be honest, they're not wrong, but even if Turok wasn't there, the Cliff People share the same mark as Turok's tribe. Cheechak would have come calling anyway. Sapinta calms the village and comes to the decision to leave the Lost Land by traveling through the past at the beginning of the movie. But Turok has other plans. He splits up from the group to go and settle things with Cheechak, Katori giving him that hairpin. And damn it, lady, can you figure it out? Obviously, that thing is jinxed. It floated downstream to that scout party, starting this whole mess off. You gave it to your husband, he died. You're giving it to Turok, and how's he going to end up? I rest my case. But instead, Cheechak is torturing Turok, hoping he will give up the Cliff People or where they're going. But Turok just retreats into his own mind, dwelling on his past mistakes, and being visited by that same masked shaman he met before. The shaman turns out to be his brother, I guess, or maybe it's just the dream messing with him. It does leave him with some wisdom. Some time passes, and Cheechak comes back with a new bargaining chip. Oh, come on, Ander. You were so close to making out of this movie without being that. I guess you stick to what you know, right? Turok gives in and spills the beans about the Cliff People, motivating Cheechak to go wipe them out and finish off Turok later, leaving 2 guards to watch the prisoners. You know where this is going. Andar makes himself useful, using useful in quotes, by distracting the guards while Turok escapes. And when they come out, he gets the idea to call for backup using the blood of his wounds. Back with the Cliff People, Cheechak ambushes them on a passage, cutting off the escape. And the fight starts to go south for the Cliff People, Cheechak about to execute Tori, when Turok comes plowing through on his noble steed. And this is just outright awesome, everybody. Turok with his knife, a dinosaur eating people, bad guys getting killed in gruesome ways, guns, arrows. All this is the kind of spectacle you expect from a Turok story. And considering it's a straight-to-DVD film, looks pretty damn cool. The tide seems to turn until Sapinta is shot from behind by that slime ball. The two square off for a one-on-one match to decide the battle. Turok is a better fighter, but Chichek don't play fair. The fight ends with one final exchange, but asshole misses his one and only shot, and Turok turns out to be a really nice guy and gives Chichek back his tomahawk. Ooh, insult to injury. The Carnosaur and Turok have one final stare down until they decide to go their separate ways, the movie ending with Sapinta's funeral fire. And that was Turok Son of Stone. For a straight-to-video film, it wasn't half bad. It has its problems, but I conflate a lot of that to budget issues. Seems like you're done. Well, Nigel, since you're finally finished eating, would you like to join me in closing statements?
Ah, yes, it was actually a lovely meal. What? Just because my dining habits may be brutish doesn't mean I should be. Ah, yes, the voice. You weren't the only one to get an upgrade this video. I found a text-to-speech software that will allow me to address the audience without those dreadful speech bubbles. But to answer your question from before, I found the movie enjoyable for the most part, the narrative being much deeper than I imagined.
The narrative? You gotta elaborate on that one, buddy. It seemed kind of simple to me, just a typical action story with dinos in it.
Turok progresses through a sort of redemption arc by protecting his brother's family and coming to terms with his own dark nature. A stark contrast to the villain Chechak, who was consumed by the cycle of vengeance to the point he wanted to eliminate anyone even remotely associated with Turok.
Well, if you put it like that, it kind of makes sense. He started off exiled from the village because he flew off the handle and attacked his own brother, but in the end he made things right and learned to make peace with himself. So, yeah, okay, I get it. Now, since it's a Turok story, we have to talk dinos. I know some inaccuracies here and there, like the Carnosaur, for example. Her arms were wrong, and she wasn't that tall either. A Carnosaur was about yay high. But I'm glad they didn't go down the T-Rex or Velociraptor route. That's kind of cliche as all hell nowadays.
I greatly appreciated the role of the dinosaurs in the movie as well. They were portrayed as animals in their own environment, instead of, as Dr. Alan Grant would put it, theme park monsters. For a straight-to-video film, the animation was pretty good, not surprising considering the animation was performed by the same studio behind DC's Justice League. However, there were issues. Environments, for example, were lacking in detail and texture. The cliffsides and prairie scenes were the most noticeable. With the largest offender being this volcano, the film lingers on. When the story ventures into the jungle, it looks much better due to the richer color palettes.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's like a lot of the art wasn't finished. They slapped that CG lava chamber on top of the art, but the volcano is missing detail. You could argue this is a perspective of an object being far away. But you remember that warning sign at Turok's camp? The one that Andor was supposed to be terrified of? But again, I'm going to contribute some of this to budget, external art and the setting being the corner they cut. Now the voice acting, I thought was decent. You had all the cameos I listed before, but you had industry giants like Chris Summer playing as Pinto.
I found the voice acting a bit weak in places. Adam Beach, who voices Turok, maintains a sort of monotone throughout the film. Instead of sounding stoic and reserved, Adam sounds bored and lifeless. This is made all the more obvious when compared to his opposite, Chechak, played by Robert Nepper, who honestly steals the show.
Ain't no denying that. They got Robert Nepper to play as the villain, and who do they get to play as Turok? Slipknot from Suicide Squad. Kind of hurt since they had Gil Birmingham playing as Neshoba instead of the other way around. I'm still kind of perturbed they didn't get Graham Greene to do more in this movie. You cannot have enough Graham Greene. The more Graham Greene you have, the better your movie.
The movie coming to an abrupt halt didn't win it any favors either.
Yeah, that's another problem. The movie wraps up pretty quickly, like they don't have enough time to address their issues. Do they seal that passage in the Lost Land? Does Turok respond to the call to adventure through the Lost Land like the movie was hinting at? And who was the shaman figure he kept seeing? Was it just a spectral version of his brother, or did it have some deeper meaning? None of these questions get answered by the end. When it ends, it just ends.
But for what it is, I do recommend this film to fans of any of the source material.
I do too, but not just for the fans of the source material. It works as a nice jumping on point if you're interested in the original stories of Turok, since the DVD is easier to find than the original comics. It's actually my preferred recommendation if you want to go down this road. But if you're still interested in the OG comics, I recommend checking out the Internet Archives. All the original comics fell into public domain, so every issue from Dell to Gold Key has been scanned into the website. And this is where I did a lot of my research for the video. And since it's free, you could read and decide if it's something you're interested in and start collecting as you go on. And that wraps up the video. But that's not all we got for Turok. Tune in next time where we cover the N64 trilogy put out by Iguana Studios that was re-released and remastered by Night Dive Studio. And boy, it's going to be a doozy of a video. Hey Nigel, why don't you close out the video for us for once?
Thank you for watching the video. Both Grouch and myself appreciate it. If you liked the video, please press the like button. And if you would like to stay up to date with the channel, subscribe and ring the notification bell.
Y'all take care.